Let's go. Welcome to the platform, my brother. Soft spoken. I got a guest here that I would love if you would introduce yourself, man, to the world. Let us know who you are.
Thank you, loved one. So I go by Thami. Um, I'm all the way from South Africa, and yeah, um, I'm part of the remnant, and yeah, it's what it is.
So, what was the upbringing like out there in that South Africa, man? Did you hear whole lot about Africa? What was your upbringing like?
Right, right. So fortunately, having been blessed with opportunities to spend time with the remnant family in America, that's a question I've received often. Um, and obviously, where I'm from. It's not a question I really have to answer. S- Um, and therefore, it's not a question I have to really think about, you know. So to answer it, I mean, the basics I believe are the same anywhere you are in the world. You have to eat every day. You have you need a close community of people whom you can trust and feel safe with. And you know, a unique South African experience to top off the answer, I'm not really sure how I can answer that. I mean, uh, in South Africa, a lot of the television, for example, has American exposure. So I kind of maybe know more about how life is in America more than you might know how it is in South Africa. But generally, I'd say a lot of stuff are similar. Similar goals, similar forms of entertainment that the average person enjoys, like music, eating out, um,
Right.
entertainment, all that type of stuff.
So, what about the
Yeah,
trials and tribulation, or like, you know, was it anything you had to go through that maybe shaped the way you think, or
yeah, definitely, definitely. So so some of the trials that I've faced, to make this real personal, as the platform is, um,
Mhm.
I grew up um I grew up with my parents separated at the age of 3. Um, and from 3 years old onwards, I had, my mom and my stepdad, and then my dad and stepmom. And my parents didn't really separate on the best terms.
Mhm.
And, they both wanted me to live with them. So, growing up, I grew up with um, a strange relationship between my parents, and I was the bridge between them. So, for example, if my mom wanted to say something to my dad, she never said it directly to him. She sent the message through me. And
Mhm.
the same way with my dad. If he wanted to say something to my mom, you know, it could be about general things. Let's say one parent wanted the other to pay school fees. They would say it through me, but what they didn't understand, I'm not sure if they realized it, but they would add their emotion about each other through the message that was sent through me. And I grew up to, you know, understand that, they had a strange relationship, and um, going through those dynamics was a big challenge in my life.
Right.
It made me it I felt incomplete because the picture that was painted in my environment and my society was that the best place to grow up is a house with two parents who are biologically yours.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right, right.
Mm. Sound like you was being developed to be a messenger.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
got one, I even like now, like if you have, like that America connection to South Africa, like the information and how it has to be bought to through you for you to convey that where you're at, you know. So
That's heavy.
I can definitely see how that could be purposeful. So it's changed since then though, right? You don't still have to go through that. What's the relationship dynamic now?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely changed. The dynamic now is much better because um now they don't need to send messages to each other anymore because I've grown to be my own person, my own man, and we can now have our own relationship. So I have my own relationship with my mom, and I have my own relationship with my dad now. And the growth in that is such that um all the traumas and things that I've held on to that are negative, I can now
Hmm.
address them directly with each one of them. So
Right.
that's the growth for me, and the healing has come from that perspective and experience, of having my own relationship with them as my own man.
Right. That's good. So the process of developing into manhood, America teaches us that once you're 18, you a man, right? What is it like in from where you're from, and what is your culture like in developing individuals into manhood?
Hold on, loved one. The connection's a little bit shaky on my side,
Okay,
I
it's good on
think.
my end. Yeah, it says reconnecting on my end. Let it load up a little bit,
Yeah, just give it a sec.
and it's cool because like I can edit all this stuff out. That's like all the miscellaneous.
Okay, no, no, great
Are
stuff
we
there.
back on?
Yeah, we're back on. Can you repeat the
Okay.
question?
Yeah, so America, they teach us so really the development into manhood. Here they say once you're 18, you a man, and it's you're not really prepped for that. So from where you're from and culturally, how what's the difference between a cultural dynamic on in developing into manhood?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the experience of life here is cultural. So there's a lot of culture. So what I mean by that is here people don't identify as just, for example, black. People
Mhm.
identify with a a more defined culture, like let's say Zulu or Xhosa
Right.
or Botswana. Um, so each of those cultures, can you still hear me?
Hey, you perfect.
All right. So each of those cultures, they have a lot of shared activities, shared things, right? And each of them have a rite of passage. So a rite of passage is basically, as I would say it, right, from my understanding and definition, is an activity that transitions you from a boy into manhood. So how that looks like, for example, in my culture or tribe, the Xhosa tribe, um, a boy would go to the mountains, spend time there with an a group of boys, and there would be a leader, and they would, do certain things like build their own, um, place to sleep for that period of time from materials in the environment. They would talk, they would, do all that sorts of stuff. So I personally didn't go through that rites of passage. Um, and I've spoken to my dad about this because I felt as if that's something I should do to be elevated within my culture, my tribe. But with that conversation with him, he said that he wanted to let me decide what I want to do. And that gave me the space to understand and think from the outside what the purpose of that cultural rites of passage is. Because, I've, as you can hear in my answer, that topic had a lot of confliction for me because I didn't really see uh, the benefit of it besides being respected by people from that tribe.
Mm.
And my dad also had his own criticisms about it, which I later ended up understanding and adopting as my own, which is that that rites of passage doesn't necessarily develop you to be quote unquote successful or a conqueror in every other society. So, for example, in the Western capitalist society of our downtown, our suburbs where all the jobs are, a cultural rite of passage that you do in the mountains, it doesn't teach you how to interact with, for example, white people,
Mm.
So, um, yeah, that's the long answer to your question of the tribes or the culture here and what is seen as the way to transition from a boy into a man.
So
Yeah.
I know you said in breaking that down, like, your father didn't see that as much as conquering. So what did he teach you about conquering? Or did he teach you anything about that?
So he didn't use the term conquering. That's something I obviously got in the information here
Hmm.
in our culture as given by the Most High. But my dad taught me a lot of, foundational things. Um, he taught me a lot of foundational things for me to build off of, and that's been a real big blessing in my life. So, for example, some of those foundational things are views on religion. So he for most of my life, almost for all of my conscious life, he hasn't been part of any religion.
Mm.
And he's told me that, he's tried all of them and he just never found something that, well, he didn't say he didn't find something that stuck, but, they would always be, he would be able to speak about the good and the bad, so he would say that the good is these ones teach you discipline. For example, Islam, he would tell me that, Buddhism or Taoism and Hinduism teach you, um, it teaches you self-actualization, you know, um, all these spiritual inner stuff. But um, yeah, so what that showed me, it made me open,
Mm.
So growing up, I was never part of a specific church, because since my dad wasn't part of anything, I could lean onto his behavior, which was, you know, um, fluid, so to
Right.
speak. Yeah, and I saw some benefits in that because he would be able to openly interact with all types of people, you know.
Mm.
But then, as I've grown up now in my more recent years, really in the past year and a half in the remnant, um, you know, the past year and a half in the remnant, that in that time, I'm now starting to develop my own views, and the conversations that me and my dad have now are, him sharing his views and him sharing my and me sharing my own views. And that naturally brought about some differences in views, and that's really where we've been for the till now.
What's the biggest disagreement?
um yeah, there's a lot. So the disagreements come in views um about manhood, right? Really manhood. We don't really speak about God that much,
Hmm.
like God as who He is, and we don't really go into the scriptures like that. But our disagreements come around um manhood, and I guess that's connected to God. But his view, for example, is that um God is within, and I hear him, um but I always wait for him to go further by what that means,
Yeah.
because you know there's a lot to who God is, as I understand from what the culture has taught me and what I've understood through the culture. And now I haven't, or rather I don't anymore just accept someone defining to me God in that way, right? I've now grown to a level where I don't just agree just to keep peace.
Mm.
You know? So for example, when we talk, he has less agreement from me, and I can see that it unsettles him because I don't agree easily with him anymore.
Right.
And um, that's where then the the conflict or the disagreements then reveal or expose themselves. Exactly.
So when you want him to expound on God within, how would you explain that? Because it is scriptures that declares that God is within, but it's also clearly evident that he's also outside.
Yeah.
You got so how would you explain that? What would be the answer you would want to hear from him?
Um. No, I appreciate that question. So I don't necessarily want to hear anything specific with him
Hmm.
or from him, right? I just I just am unable to fully agree with him, and I don't. It's taking me a while to feel comfortable to add to what he's saying, because if I agree with him and add, I then now become his teacher,
Hmm.
and that's not something I'm familiar or have had experience with him yet to know that it's safe to do so.
Right. I can see that.
So I don't want to teach with my words. You know, I I I just let him know that I believe what I believe, and he I don't require him to understand it through what I say anymore. It was like that at first when I first got into the information,
Hmm.
where I'd want to tell him, I learned this, I learned this and that, this and that. This is how really life is. This is how women really are. But I understand why he wouldn't want to hear from me about women, because I don't have the receipts in my life of, let's say, a marriage or this and that. So I started understanding as I had more time in the information that it's really receipts that are gonna do the talking. So
Right.
even my own definition of God, right? My talking is not gonna. I can't rely on that. He needs to see it in my life.
Mm.
So that's where I really am.
Yeah, and that's powerful that you say that because that's what we teach. Your words have to match your life, and your life have to match your words.
Right.
So it's not in it. We're not in a space. We can always disagree, but we're not forcing our views. You know what I mean? And I like that
Yeah.
you said that. Like we demand, just like our people demand signs. That's the receipts. We need to see the receipts. We need to see the signs of, okay, what it is that you're saying. Why should this be valuable? Okay, well, this is what's being applied in my life. You know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
So, mm,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh no, I was just gonna add and just seal that off by saying, I've had to, what the information has also taught me is that, you know, as it's written in our scripture to honor our mother and father, really the culture gives us so many tools, so many spiritual tools to apply to a situation. And in this situation, I got the opportunity to understand what it means to honor my mother and father, right?
Hmm.
And the other tool that the information gives is that you don't need to agree with someone 100% of the time to build with them,
Right.
right? So even if I disagreed with him at first, it frustrated me, but then I had to mature to understand that I can still build here. Just because there's differences doesn't mean God can't be revealed in the situation, right? I just need to understand my part in it and what to do, and that's through the receipts,
Right. That's powerful.
right?
So why do you want to be remnant?
Why do I want to be remnant? Um, it's the best place to be. Um, it's it's the best place to be. It's the safest place to be. Um, it's the most elevated place to be. It's the place where I felt the most complete. Um, it's the place where I felt most complete because growing up I wasn't part of any religion. I wasn't prepared to have an idea of what God looks like, right? And now being in the remnants, fast forward to now, I can confidently say I know who God is, and I'm also a very learned person. right? Went to high school, college, have a degree from university, and you know, being elevated by the system through that path, right? Having a degree, it's something that someone can be proud of, right? Someone like me, flexes their degree, for example. But knowing God, right, that feels way better, and for me is a bigger flex than any of that which I've known in
Mm-hmm.
my past life. And I can say
Mm-hmm.
that with conviction, because if you ask me, you know, if you ask me to speak about my God, I actually feel alive, in a way that I haven't before. Whereas in the world, in the indoctrination, in the system, if you ask me about the contents of my degree, for example, if maybe I'm sitting with a top student who has the same thing as me, I might feel insecure,
Mm.
because in the system, it's about how much more I know more than you. But in the remnant, iron sharpens iron,
Right.
So what you know about God can never be weaponized against me, right? It can only
Mm.
build, and vice versa. So that's why I want to be remnant, because every day you become bigger in this information. To add to that, um, with a lot of the current remnant being in America, um, I would question and think about how you know different we are due to the environments we grew up in. But um, recently, through the Holy Ghost and through how we've been developed in the information, by our God, I've 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 come to understand, right, that no matter where we are from on this earth, we will begin to look the same. So just the mere fact of this conversation happening, it's because we have something in common.
Right.
And that's the information. That's our God. So that's been something that's given me a lot of peace and clarity, because there's confusion that can come around um, this dynamic of me being in South Africa and you being in America. What
Yeah.
brings us together?
Mm-hmm.
How all these possible questions, but we really we really operate the same, and this information makes us look the same. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
That's powerful. So who is one of your favorite prophets? Like who do you
My
like reading
favorite.
about? Yeah, prophets in the scripture. Do you have any favorites or anybody that you want to follow after their footsteps?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, now I love that question. So I thought about that actually, because we spoke about it in one of our classes of choosing an ancestor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I haven't really fully read the whole Bible, right? I'm currently at um Colossians, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
in the New Testament, but I still have enough to answer the question. Um, so for me, I really look towards Moses's um story, because he grew up wealthy with the best of everything of the land, right? Because he grew up with the
Mm-hmm.
Pharaoh. Um, and and similarly to me, I didn't grow up in poverty or in the villages, you know. And Moses, he chose to leave um that house of Pharaoh to suffer affliction with God's people, you know. So it means that he saw that there was something that was even greater. There was something that he elevated even above the wealth of his house, of the house that he grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I have a degree, and I can have, the quote unquote American dream life, to live in in a big house and a picket fence, but you know, like Moses, I really now see God's people, and that's a greater space. That God's people, that remnant is a greater space than 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 anything else. So that's my ancestor, that I'm choosing to really, yeah, to really live
Go
my life.
after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm challenging him.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful. Thinking about that because it's like how you say people can be in like them elevated spaces in society and their whole conversation be about who knows more compared to like once people may consider like us or whatever the case may be, it's about how much we know about our God,
Mm,
which I can see why Moses could probably feel that type of way. Like, man, okay, all this sound cool, but it was something that he seen within his people that he knew how looking at his people, he had to know how big God was for him to turn around and take that down, step down
mm,
from that position and get a greater position just by man, because he said he chose to suffer with the people.
mm.
What makes it more heavy because to choose suffering over luxury or the temporal things, it meant nothing.
Right.
So the fact that yeah, that's a heavy task, individual like that to mold yourself after or to follow the footsteps, man, because that was a heavy individual, man.
Yeah, yeah. And to add to that, I've spoken in the last retreat when we got back from Hawaii in Seattle. Dre asked me, why do you think the Most High has has chosen you, or has you sort of isolated, as a person right there at the south of Africa while everyone's in America. And I've never really thought about that. And I was I was trying to think in a temporal sense, thinking of um, my environment. I try to think, okay, maybe I know many cultures here, I'm good with people, um, I can talk to people, similar to what we were discussing in last night's class, where where Dre, where Dre and Emmanuel had their conversation, and Emmanuel was saying, I think the Most High is preparing me for something. I was in that space. I know that space, you know? I know that space. I was in that space up until that conversation I had with Dre in Seattle, where he said where he said to me that I shouldn't even be asking myself, why me? I should know that it's me, and I should operate
Mm,
within knowing that it is me,
hmm.
right? And similar to what he told Emmanuel, um, about, I believe, the prophet Jeremiah, where Jeremiah was told by the Most High that, I'm paraphrasing here, where Jeremiah was told by the Most High that I've chosen you to be the leader, right? And Jeremiah's like, why me? I'm young. That wise is, I know that space, and
Yeah.
it's important not to operate in that space, and beyond that, I'm grateful that I've been elevated beyond that space, you
Mm,
know, to take on that it is me, and that and that I'm not being prepared for something. I'm prepared for whatever.
mm.
You know, that's just so heavy to me, man. And yeah, it's exciting. It's, man, all
So,
praises.
so what was the words that was being said for you to develop that disposition? Because there's a lot of people that's in your space right now. Like a lot of people aren't in Seattle. They're like, man, I'm over here, and I want to be with the family. But the fact that you was isolated, how like, what is it that's keeping you in that disposition to have that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing receipts in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing receipts in my life. I'll only feel far if I'm only looking for receipts in America.
Mm,
So I'm not looking far, so I don't feel far. I'm looking right here in my life and applying this in my life. I've seen receipts.
Mm, mm-hmm.
That's the long and short answer. I'm seeing the change in my life. So I know
Mm.
it's real.
What was one of the biggest changes you think that didn't happen? Like, who was Tommy last year or before the information to now?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot. So, beyond understanding God and able to speak about him, um, I've now become a person who is more secure. I I better understand, well, I know what manhood is now, right? The elevation of principles of accountability, honor, integrity, um, which 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 make me pay attention to everything that, for example, I say. Now I don't just speak loosely, you know.
Mm,
Um, I don't just speak to anyone and everyone, you know. I don't swear as much anymore. Um, so my mouth has become clean. Um, the job that I'm in as well. Um, it always used to give me a tough time mentally because, you know, I used to complain about the white man, you know, why are other people getting promotions quicker than I am, you
mm,
know? But the information has taught me that, promotion doesn't come from the west, south, east, or north. It
mm,
doesn't come from the white man. It comes from the Most High. So I shouldn't be looking at my job as if I'm working for the white man. I should see my job as an opportunity for me to exercise my manhood and be accountable to not the white man, right, but to these principles, because
mm.
that's how I'll be elevated. So that's where it's made a change in my life to the point where now I wake up every day with that vigor and 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 understanding where my value is, right? I now know where my value is, and I don't need anymore for my boss or the white man to tell me that, hey, Tommy, you're doing a good job, you know. I already know that that comes with the territory, and I've experienced that to know it. So yeah, this is just something you can't let go of.
So to the outside world, man, like you say, you grow up pulling from different doctrines. Everybody everybody God is great. No matter if
Mm,
it's carved in wood, no matter what it is, somebody got to make a boast as to what they believe in. So my question to you is, so why should people follow your God? What makes your God real? And why should the people drop everything that they have to come follow Tommy and what you
mm,
believe in?
that's heavy. That's a beautiful question.
Hey, that's soft
So
spoken, man. We gonna come with the salting.
yeah, no, bring it on, bring it on. We here for the tough questions.
Hmm.
Um, so if there's a scripture that's heavy, and to quickly quote it, if you don't believe me, believe the works.
Mm,
So you have to look at these works. We're not campaigning, we're not sending manifestos, spending big budgets on telling you why you should join, right? I'm saying look at my life, you know, look at my life. I'm not just saying that I understand God. Look at God through my life.
mm.
Uh, so that's why I would tell someone to come be part of this remnant, so that God can become evident in your life. So that you can understand Him, um, and and yeah, that's how I put it.
Yeah. But that's a good segue. I mean, not segue, but that's a good answer because I don't know. I mean, we spoke on Moses, but a lot of the prophets, man, they wasn't rich. They didn't have all the money, but God made sure that He showed up big in their life. You know,
Mm,
a lot of us come from humble beginnings, man. We talk about David all the time in the cave.
right.
You know, he was in the cave. He was, a keeper of the sheep. He ain't have wealth or nothing like that, but when it was time for Goliath, when you know when the Most High was like, okay, I'm gonna show, like you say, just watch David's life. Let me show up. Let me show you that I'm with this individual right here. And he slayed Goliath, man.
Exactly.
He ain't boast about the big badge. He ain't boast, hey man, he took the challenge on, and God and everybody was scared. The fact that Israel, our ancestors, had to witness that. you know,
Yeah,
something that might seem like whatever, but that was big for God. So,
exactly.
man, yeah, that's very powerful, bro. What you're saying, man. So, how old are you again?
I'm 25.
25. So for the
Yeah,
25-year-olds, man, I mean, you done went through so much. Man, we gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to come back on this one, man, just to ask you some more questions. You already know how that go.
for
But man,
sure, for sure.
to the man that's 25, man, that's lost. You know,
Mm.
what you got to say for that individual? If it was advice, what would you tell them?
What would I tell them? Um, Man, I would tell them, you know, I know, I know what you're thinking about. I know they tell you that you need to have money before you can have a woman. Um, you know, I know that life, life is telling you, life is telling you that you need all these things from the world before you can be anything, and I know that you believe you're a man, right? I know that since you're over 18, you believe that you're a man and that you should know everything. And in some spaces you might think you know everything, but um deep inside, deep inside, I know that 25-year-old, I know you, there's so much you don't know.
Mm,
And I know that you're looking for answers about many important things in life. I know you're looking for a leader and there isn't one in the society, and you feel the pressure of you being a leader in your environment, and you do feel scared, and you need somewhere to learn that from, right?
mm.
And there hasn't been examples of anyone to learn that from. Come learn it here. Come here. Come to this information and learn it. You learn about who you are, you learn about manhood, and you learn it to the extent that you'll be able to achieve all that you need and want to be able to do in your life, like govern your family, govern a woman, govern yourself, and anything you set your foot on. So that's what I'd say to a 25-year-old. I know that emptiness
Mm.
that you feel inside about life, about anything, be it a woman, be it a job, be it the Most High, right? Come to this information. We take care of everything. We take care of literally everything.
That's powerful, man. Oh man, this conversation was definitely refreshing. I want to thank you again for your time, Tommy, man. You came with some, man, you a heavyweight around here. And this brother is in South Africa.
We all the
You
same,
know,
loved one. We all the same. Iron sharpens
man,
iron, man. I appreciate you.
yes, sir. I'll definitely get you back on here, man, soon. But yeah, your word, that was a phenomenal testimony from over there, man. I know the people gonna be excited to when I tell them, man, yeah, I was on the line with Tommy. They're gonna be like, Tommy, man, what's going on, man? Oh man, Tommy, yeah, man, just wait to that,
Hey, what up,
just wait to
though?
that. Yeah, hit
You
him with
know,
the what up though, man. It's definitely gonna drop soon, brother. I got you, man. But once again, brother, I appreciate you, man, your time, man, your spirit and everything, brother.
I appreciate you, family. I love you.
Love you too, man. I'll get back with you.
Yes, sir.
Yep. One.